Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Generation Web. As a quick reminder, this episode is sponsored by Anchor. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started creating your own podcast. We'll hear more about them later. I do want to thank everyone for the amazing support on Spotify from episode 1. It seems like everyone really enjoyed Josh's topic of COVID 5G, and we're back again this week with my co-host Josh and our guest Casey. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing, Casey?
I'm hanging in there.
So we've got 3 of us today. We're going to try to just have a casual discussion about what we're all doing under quarantine, what we're doing to pass the time, and then we're going to check in to a new little segment we've created called Conspiracy Corner. So stick around for that. How's everyone handling this time in quarantine? We can't go anywhere. We can't do anything. I'm playing a lot of games. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, man. I'm playing lots of video games as well, mostly Warzone. And then, I have to keep my immune system strong right now. So drinking a lot of alcohol, a lot of nicotine as well.
The
That's
essentials.
kind of the formula. Yeah.
So I've never realized how good canned goods could be in this time. And also, just playing a lot of games.
Anyone playing Animal Crossing? I know, Casey, you have a Switch. Have you found that game yet?
I do not owe Tom Nook any money yet. Thank you.
The Nook Empire. That's what all I see on social media seems to be Animal Crossing and Doom. And then most recently, the last couple days, the Final Fantasy VII remake that's come out. What is everyone playing on? I'm a hardcore PC player, but I do own all the consoles. Josh, what's your console of choice or platform of choice?
Yeah, man. I I play PC games as well, and then PlayStation. I mean, right now I'm mostly playing Warzone because I have a bunch of buddies that play Warzone as well, and I'm playing that on console just because I've always played Call of Duty on console. So yeah, PlayStation for the most part right now.
About the same, yeah. Most of my buddies were staying connected through Warzone in the battlefield out there, PS4. A little bit of Switch from here and there. Play some Mario Kart with the girlfriend, but yeah, man, online gaming is helping out this.
Trying to keep us all connected but apart. I think there's some sort of hashtag like that. So is Warzone holding up? Is that still keeping momentum? I know a couple weeks ago I was playing that pretty heavily, and then kind of fizzled out like I do with every Call of Duty game. It just seems to, once you go through the rigmarole, there's not much new. But did they just start a new season or something?
Yeah, they have a new battle pass. They started season 3 on the 7th of April. I think the content was pretty horrible. Like as far as the skins and the stuff that you would get throughout the tiers, but they did make some adjustments to the actual game. I think some of those were positive. As far as like the price for loadouts and before you would run teams of 3, now you have the option to run teams of 4, and you can also play solos as well. They also increased the amount of ground loot, which was necessary because you can now have 4 guys on a squad. And they varied it as well. Before it was like the same old guns that you were picking up. Now there's different stuff that you can grab, which I think they were all pretty good, solid improvements.
As far as I can tell, this is the the best Battlefield game as of recently. All the fun moments of just throwing C4 on the ATV, helicopter shenanigans.
So are you a vehicle user?
Oh yeah. We get the cars or the Jeeps and drive around. The meta is changing. People are starting to roadkills are becoming harder. Let's say. RPG suiciders are common.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the changes. I mean, the loot boxes or the battle pass. I mean, other than like 2 new guns that you get throughout the levels, but you can get those for free. I haven't felt a need for it, but some of the changes have been good for the game.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's super underwhelming, but you bring up a good point, Casey. The meta right now is to run RPGs. It's very RPG heavy. It's kind of cheesy, in my opinion.
The Joker as well. Just lock on, javelin missile from the sky, building campers. I'm feeling nerf coming on, but until then, that's going to be my secondary.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
So we're talking about this is now going into season 3, and for non-gamers out there, the common trend in video games is a more open revenue model where there's not a big charge up front, if any. Like Warzone, great example. All of a sudden, a trailer dropped Monday that said available tomorrow, and it was very much open to everybody. And they assume they're going to get revenue through starting to monetize that through these different loot boxes and skins. But um, a lot of the games out there are now doing seasons where you get for lack of a better word, a level for the season, or you get experience and you get accomplishments and you get unlocks and rewards for doing various challenges, and that's how they're trying to hook in to get your money is by allowing you to skip maybe some of those levels in that battle pass to get that next unlock, that next skin that you want.
Right, there'll be each season's going to be a limited time, so many weeks or maybe a couple months where these skins will be available, and the only way to get them is to pay the fee and play the game. Which
hmm
sometimes I've paid for a battle pass, and then literally a new game came out, and I switched games, wasted all that money because I never played it. But also, these are only cosmetics. If you just don't pay for it, you can still play the game, have just as much fun. You know, just skins and like I said, just literally cosmetics. They're unnecessary.
Now, the cosmetic side of microtransactions is the fun side. That's what gets me. Um, I love to look cool in a game, whether the weapon or your character looking good. Josh has a little bit more experience with the dark side of microtransactions. Mainly, EA is doing the Ultimate Team stuff where you can spend a ton of money, and if you can drop 20 grand on this game, you can get stuff that will make you win, like players that are better. That's very much a pay to win model versus a free to play.
Correct. And the thing with Call of Duty, I agree with you, Michael. I don't mind the model that they use where they're going to give you premium content if you pay for a battle pass and you earn it. And you make a valid point. Like it is cool that you can get these different skins, but I remember not so long ago where you could play these types of games and make your character look whatever you wanted them to look like without having to pay anything. Now it's like, oh, if you want this cool skin, you have to pay for it. So I don't know. I don't love it. But with that being said, as long as the content is solid, I don't mind paying for a battle pass. I just feel like at least in Warzone, the season so far have been pretty underwhelming. What are your thoughts on that, Casey? Because I know you're playing Warzone.
I am. I am. Like I said, that other than some certain gameplay elements, which the two new guns in this battle pass you can get for free without having to buy the battle pass. So as long as they keep up with that, I'm not going to buy the battle pass. I'm kind of the opposite of Mike on this one. Cosmetics and video games never really mattered to me. I played a lot of Rocket League, and I think the only reason I wanted cosmetics is because my teammates and/or friends had them, just so we could match as a team. So literally, I think peer pressure got me to pay more loot boxes than video games advertising or personal desire.
Well, so Rocket League is another example of a game on the other end of the spectrum. They've taken out a lot of their microtransactions. At least they've made headlines as far as how they've tried to stay ahead of the curve of loot boxes being or microtransactions and video games being deemed somewhat of gambling. Where they're one of the like Counter-Strike Global Offensive, like um, your EA game, Battlefront, sorry, your Star Wars, Battlefront and Battlefield, they all have to display the odds of what you're getting when you purchase this random mystery crate. Is it going to be a skin or whatever? It has to tell you what's going to be in it. What are your chances of getting each individual item? But Rocket League now, you can't directly spend money into that. You have to like get tickets or some sort of you get right. Help me.
Yeah, there's I mean, we're kind of switching up here because you got seasons and then loot boxes. But they have switched it up in the sense that as opposed to a mystery crate that may or may not contain a list of items, there is now a Rocket League currency that you get, and there's a store, and the store will show you, for today, you can buy these items at this level of currency. But if you want to buy more, you have to pay more. And then there's a store, and the store will show you, for today, you can buy these items at this level of currency. But if you want to buy more, you have to pay more. Or there is still a random boxes you can get that for a certain amount of currency, but as opposed to just being able to like pay cash for a key to open a box, now you just use your Rocket League currency to open a box. So it's a little different. I think it's just kind of keeping them on the legal front, like, oh, you're not gambling because you're not paying cash for a chance, you're paying cash for a currency. Then you're using in-game currency for a chance. Maybe it's a little different now, but
Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
how they're skirting the lines.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I mean, Michael, you played Apex, correct?
Oh yeah.
Casey, did you play Apex?
yeah, I did. That's another one where thanks for the free game. I haven't given y'all any money.
The reason why I bring up Apex is because Apex Season 1, Apex Season 2, right around the beginning when Apex was super popular, I think they had the best system in place because it was kind of a mix of both of the things that we're talking about. So they would have a store where you could purchase different skins and you were basically buying those outright. And you could do that with the in-game currency that you could either earn or of course purchase with real money. But on the flip side, for a little bit less money, you could take that currency and purchase loot boxes, and then, it becomes a game of chance. But I like having both options because oftentimes, like you'll see in Warzone, they don't have loot boxes. You do have the ability to purchase skins directly from their store, but they're just so expensive. It's like $20-$25 for some of these skins, which is just crazy. Which it would be cool if you could potentially obtain some of those skins for a little bit less money. So I think Apex had it down probably the best I've seen it of any game that I've played so far. But as the seasons progressed and like season 3, season 4 came out, the system started to get real screwy because then they created like season specific currency, which it started to get too complex and crazy from there.
Right, that's for the skins though. For each limited season, it's all a way to, you can only get this for a certain amount of time. You have to get it now and play or pay for the pass. But like I said, I mean, it's all cosmetic, so it hasn't affected me. And then I do like Apex because playing the game, you were able to earn a small amount of in-game currency, but you were always able to purchase a new character, and keep up with the gameplay. Now you might not have the coolest looking character out there because of the skins, but if a lot more, like in Warzone's doing the same thing. Like without buying the battle pass, you won't be missing out on a new weapon as long as you play enough. Now, of course, paying, you're going to get a lot quicker. But like I said, that kind of brings up the pay to win. But I think if companies are going to have this stuff, they need to keep in mind not everybody can buy it, and being able to get some of it without having to pay is nice.
I agree, but that the company should maybe keep some of that in mind, but they're not. They're going in the other direction, and this kind of segues into the evil side of microtransactions in gaming. Companies are patenting crazy technology. 2015, Activision patents a system to make microtransactions even more obnoxious. And to quote the article, the patent titled "System and Method for Driving Microtransactions in Multiplayer Video Games." It's basically a way to reward players who buy content and subtly punish those who don't via games' built-in matchmaking algorithms. So, for instance, you're in a multiplayer match. It's going to match you up with people that have bought this cool gear. Their characters look badass. They have this badass weapon, and their skill rating or whatever, however good they are in the game, however the game determines that, they're much better than you. So you get your ass kicked and you go look at the end of the game and you see, oh, all these awesome characters have these weapons. And the game's then going to say, hey, these are the people that kicked your ass. Do you want their equipment? And offer you that as a microtransaction. Do you want that battle rifle? Do you want that sword that you just got your ass kicked with? And then guess what they're going to do? You make that purchase, they're going to reward you. They're going to give you 10 easy games in multiplayer. pairing you with people that it's their first multiplayer match, and you feel like a god, and that purchase is justified. So when they do it again, you're going to buy it again.
That's crazy, but I believe it because that sounds very similar to the Star Wars game. What was it called? The Star Wars game that came out a couple years ago, Battlefront.
Yeah,
Battlefront. Yep.
People, I mean, I don't know how long that idea has been around for, but when that game was released, I remember, watching a lot of videos on YouTube of game reviewers that were complaining that it was just very difficult to hop into that game as a newbie, because you hop into a match and you're playing with a bunch of people that are higher level, have better weapons, and they're just destroying you. So you have no choice but to spend the money so that you're on the same same level as all of the other opponents that you're going up against.
Yep.
I think EA is the number one offender, though, by far.
Absolutely, and EA's patent was very similar for upcoming Dark Souls themed games, the very difficult, challenging boss style fighting or combat games. You get beaten by a boss, and then in the loading screen where it says you're dead and you want to retry or continue, it says, hey, guess what, 86% of players have beaten this boss with quote unquote resource X. Do you want to buy resource X?
That would really, really upset me. I've played difficult games like that, and being able to pay to win, like, not only does it takes away from that type of gameplay a lot. I do think it's kind of insidious in that way, but I mean, the greatest challenge of those games is getting killed over and over and over again, and then as a player, or you learn by learning the gameplay mechanics, overcoming that, and you'll use up all your potions, you'll struggle and die a million times, and then one day you'll just come in and everything clicks and you beat the boss, you save all your potions, and you're like, I'm the best. Like, this is awesome. And that feeling's really rewarding with that gameplay. And so getting a prompt to pay to win through that, oh man, that's not cool. That's all.
I like the idea. And this is what Josh and I were talking about kind of last week, is in some games, in certain scenarios, I want to pay to win because I have a turned 7 months old 2 days ago. Baby, I don't have time to learn the mechanics, to sit there and grind a boss for 8 hours to figure out then and get that win. I've got the patience or time to do that once or twice, and then I don't want to stop. I spent $60 on the game. I don't want to be, stopped at the second boss. I want to experience the game, even though I can't necessarily put in the time that it requires for the full experience. I would love to pay that $2.99 to get that resource X, beat that boss, and so I can have fun with the rest of the game.
That is a good point. We are different gamers, and yeah, for some people, like you said, being able to get the full experience on a limited amount of time, if pay a few dollars, skip a few levels, or get a great item, I mean, that's true. That is a valid point there. I still don't know if I would do it or not, but like I said, we have different circumstances. So under different circumstances, it's good. But
no, and that's why I've turned a lot towards streaming as a primary way to still experience a lot of video games without actually having to play them and put in the time.
Now there's something, but are you subscribed to a lot? It's as opposed to paying for battle passes, maybe you're paying for subscriptions now too.
No, I'm watching free streamers. Just if I like for Doom, I did buy it. I did play a good bit of Doom, but it does require a lot of time to master some of the later mechanics, and I watched the end of Doom like on a stream, just because it was easier. I got to see all the cutscenes and cinematics and get the story, and maybe I'll get to dive in and do the actual gameplay one day. But Josh, what do you prefer? I mean, are you one to dive, tens of hours into a game like Borderlands 3 and grind and get the loot, or are you one to pay, or would you prefer to watch it?
No, I'm not a big fan of watching streams. I'd much rather play the game, and I don't mind grinding. I'm not a big fan of paying to win. I think the real problem is it's kind of a double edged sword, because if you're a game developer, obviously the goal is to produce a solid product that's going to be popular. But not only that, something that you can monetize and make money off of. I mean, at the end of the day, these guys are in the business to make money. So that's why you have microtransactions, and that's why you have loot boxes. My issue with the way that games are being developed now is I think they're focusing too much of their development on monetizing these things instead of saying, "Hey, we just want to produce the best game possible." They're cutting corners, and really the goal is how can we make the most amount of money. And you're seeing that bleed into games that are being released today, where yes, the graphics are better, and you have all these cool things that you can do because of multiplayer features that you didn't have back in the day with PlayStation and N64. But as far as like the nuts and bolts, the features of a lot of these games, they're not as good as, I would argue that they are not as good as they once were.
No, give me GoldenEye, give me Halo, no microtransactions, one-time purchase,
Right.
and it those started this whole gaming craze, and it can be done.
Now there are still some gems out there. Some games have come out and been a full experience, been fine. There's no DLC, no battle pass. I had a lot of fun with the Return of the Jedi, Fallen Order, Revenge of the, all the titles mixed in there. Can you? But
Is that the recent Star Wars one that just came out last year?
yeah, Star Wars Jedi
Yeah.
Fallen Order is the official title. But yeah, it was a good story, single player, no multiplayer, no battle pass. Witcher 3 came out, full experience. I sank so many hours. Such a good game. The
God of War.
DLC was actually reasonably priced, and I had a lot of fun with it. Legend of Zelda. But on the flip side, you got, like I said, pay to win. Unfinished games were like, hey, let's just release that as DLC later. I'm
Mhm.
looking at you, Division.
Ark Survival Evolved, Division 2. Yeah.
Right, Division 2 literally had a $3
No Man's
sale to
Sky.
get the game. Here, get the game for $3 and then pay $25 for the DLC to make the game fun. Like, it's a trend, and I just don't know where it ends. But
So
I don't think it's going to end on a positive note. I think we're going to see more and more of that because people are going to continue to buy these video games. And especially right now, during this quarantine, as we all mentioned, which is why we're talking about video games, there's not much else to do. And the video games are, I believe, number one form of entertainment now,
they are.
more so than TV and movies. So as long as these guys are making money, I think the product's going to be it's going to be watered down.
It's $160 billion plus dollar industry, almost as much as Jeff Bezos's net worth.
it's crazy
Just
when
shy.
more people watch the Championship Series of League than the World Series.
Mhm.
It's become crazy. There's such a big industry in it, and also with the, I mean, I don't know, I'm a little worried for the future because of the rise of like subscription-based gaming. PlayStation
The model
Now,
works.
Stadia.
The model absolutely works. Walmart did it first, a little bit, a lot of the time. Get everybody to play their game and expect 10% to be the bulk of those microtransaction revenue, and it works. You've got the 10% wealthy people that are dumping hundreds of thousands of dollars into these developers' pockets. You look at EA, the biggest, I would say, culprit of all the corporations using microtransactions. Was it like 60% of their revenue is microtransactions, like $700 million a quarter?
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
And to piggyback on that, I just, in a utopia, I would hope that everyone would stop buying these games, but it's never going to happen. So I just don't think um, that we're going to get quality games moving forward. Really, where the biggest genre of video game that's being impacted are sports games. Like, I'm a huge sports junkie. Growing up, I would buy every Madden, every NHL, every FIFA, and I've stopped. I haven't bought a Madden game probably since I was in college. So I don't know, some Madden 2013, Madden 2014. So I haven't bought it in 6 or 7 years. And that's simply because the only thing they care about is Ultimate Team. Like, the other popular modes, franchise mode, and there's like an online franchise mode where it's connected. So you control one team and your friends control other teams and you guys can make trades and stuff like that.
So
Those
that's the
things
fun.
all existed. Yeah, all of those things existed back in like 2009, 2010, but they
Wow.
don't exist in Madden 2020 any longer. Like, yes, they have a franchise mode, but it's just so watered down. Like, I remember growing up, you could create your own team, create your own jerseys, your own
Why don't they do
helmets.
like an interconnected with the actual NFL season of like a fantasy mode on steroids, which is what it sounds like, but an online connected, you do a draft, this is your team, you're playing,
They
if your
did.
team's playing this team this week, that's an actual another player controlled team. That's,
They had that, but they went away from it. Really, there's two reasons why. The first reason is when the next gen systems come out, the first release of those games just happened to be watered down. Which, because when there's a new system that gets released, what that typically leads to is, hey, now we can have better graphics, better physics. We can build this game on a new engine. In that scenario, I understand. You're not going to be able to grab all the content that you built up, building over the years, and just snap your fingers and be able to release that with an entire new engine on an entire new system. But what they've done is, especially with like PlayStation 4, Xbox One, all of the Madden iterations for those two systems, they just never really built upon the first game that was released for those systems, which now has been 5 or 6 years. It's
Yeah.
almost the same exact game with, some improved graphics. The only thing that's different is the Ultimate Team. It's the only thing they focus on because, as you mentioned, it's like 60 to 70% of their revenue.
Now, I haven't played sports games since Blitz on 64. What is Ultimate Team?
So Ultimate Team is a mode where um, you play online and basically you pick a team. So you pick like the Eagles or Cowboys, whoever your favorite team is, and they give you starter packs. So it's just no different than like going to the store and buying a pack of football cards. When those packs
Wow.
open, you get players, and those players become part of your team, and you play other people online to earn points. And as you grind, you take those points to purchase more packs to unlock better players. But there are a few problems. The first problem is they make it very difficult to compete and actually be good unless you're going to dedicate a ton of time. So this kind of goes back to what Michael was talking about, where if you're an individual that has a kid or maybe you work 2 jobs, the chances of you ever being really successful in Ultimate Team are going to be slim to none because you're just not going to have enough time to grind unless you want to come out of pocket. And then you can buy those packs with cash.
Wow.
The two problems too is, like we talked about earlier, when you're buying a pack of cards, like nothing's guaranteed. You don't know what you're going to get. So you could buy a pack of cards and not improve your team at all. The second thing is a lot of the packs just contain filler, which you see in other games too, where you might get a good player, but you're also going to get a bunch of random nonsense. So one of the things that EA does is you get these players out of these packs of cards, but each player has like a contract. So it's like, oh, you can use this card for 9 games. Then their contract expires. And then you have to use a consumable card to basically re-sign that player. So when you buy a pack, you might get a couple players. You're going to get a bunch of consumable consumable cards as well, which is contract extensions, or for one game, this player's speed gets boosted by a couple points or whatever it may be. So it's kind of one big scam. And now what they're doing is, and I think this is the biggest crime, like when Ultimate Team first came out, because I used to play it for NHL and FIFA, the way it was modeled was like the best players in the world were very difficult and rare cards to get. So, for example, if you played FIFA, if you got like a Messi or a Ronaldo, the chances of you pulling one of those guys in a pack would be slim to none. But if you pulled them, they obviously dominated and they were worth a lot of money.
For a limited
Now,
time, right?
yeah, well, now what they're doing is they're making like all players available. So you could play a game of FIFA Ultimate Team, and in your first starter pack, you could pull a Ronaldo, but they're watering down his attributes and statistics. And what they're making you do is grind more or pay more money
And get that
to like boost
holographic
up these
Ronaldo.
players. Right, exactly.
Wow. See,
Trading card the game.
Exactly.
no matter what your skill is in this game, you could be the best player ever, but starting out, you're going to have such a
Right.
crappy pack of players, and you
Yes.
might get a good player for a limited amount of time until the card
Exactly.
like evaporates. That's
Yeah.
you weren't kidding. EA, that's like the worst example of loot box gaming, gambling, pay to win I've ever heard of. I'm so glad I didn't get into that. Wow.
Yeah. It's a shame because it is really fun, and I think one of the problems is too, and why it isn't going to go away. Not only are they making a lot of money, but the consumers kind of get addicted to it. You get addicted to building your team and showing off, like, hey, these are my players, and playing other people and beating up on them because they don't have players as good as you do, and those guys might be better than you, but at the end of the day, you're still going to win just because you can field a team of all stars and they have a bunch of nobodies.
EA
sure
has
that's-
done 4 separate psychological studies, all dealing with certain mechanism of their microtransaction model. So the way the pack of cards is presented to you, the sound the pack of cards makes when it's unlocked, the to the colors that it's displaying are all meant to mimic what casinos are researching and have implemented. That type of, you're just they create an addiction.
Right, the
Yep.
bright colors, the sound effects, everything makes you feel happy. I mean, there's a lot of engineering that goes into the sounds of just tones that happen when you do that. It's they are spending a lot of money on that, and that should tell you right there, like this isn't going away.
And just to kind of get back to what you were saying there, Michael, earlier when you were talking about watching streams and stuff like that, if you go on YouTube or you go on Twitch, there are videos that get millions and millions of views of some streamer that decide to dump $1,000 into opening up a bunch of packs, and people that aren't, you're watching someone else open up packs and you're getting excited because of the things you mentioned. Like if you're about to get a really good card, the pack opens, it makes like a different sound, you get like confetti or something to signify that you're about to get something good, and then there's like a delay, so it's just like amping you up.
Building
You're
the
right,
suspense,
it's yes,
tension.
correct.
And that's what they're even Twitch now is getting to the point where it was a wonderful platform in the early stages, trying to provide people a way to stream content. They're now obviously getting very greedy, being owned by Amazon. I think when that happened 2 or 3 years ago, that really kind of put the nail in the coffin for Twitch. I think for me, at least numbered its days. Have you heard what they're doing with Valorant, the Riot FPS?
No.
So it's in closed beta. Cool, right? A lot of games go through that period. It's due out in summer 2020. They gave probably 100 of the top streamers on Twitch keys to the game and said, go have fun. And what we're basically going to do is we're going to, through this Twitch feature called Drops, is if I'm watching a streamer play Valorant, I have a chance that every so often, randomly, the developer Riot is going to take everybody watching one of these enabled streamers and pull a name and give that person a key to the game. So they're basically just saying, to get a key to this game, to play closed beta, you need to watch Twitch streamers stream this game. So for the last 4 days, I've been watching Summit pull 20 plus hour days streaming because he's gotten 390 plus to 500,000 viewers consistently. Everybody just trying to get a key to this game.
That is wild. Like, just watch us play this game that's not out yet for the chance to play it.
Oh, and it works. Like, dear God, they're if I could buy this game right now, there would be $150, $200. Sure, I'd pay that for as much time as I've just sit and trying to watch and get a key to this game. As much hype as they've built around it, and as much like exclusivity you feel like because these random people are getting keys and now they're able to play the game just alongside the streamers, and they're getting match made and in the matchmaking group with these huge FPS esport type streamers. Summit, Josh OG, um,
Dr. Disrespect.
Dr. Disrespect, Dr. Lupo.
I won't
Those
lie,
guys.
the game looks fun. It's a kind of a mix between Overwatch and Counter Strike, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, it's Rainbow Six esque, Overwatch esque mixed with your Counter Strike. So it's a hero based strategical shooter.
Gotcha. Now, I mean, it looks fun, and there's so much hype for it. They could literally put whatever number they want to it for people to buy right now and cash in.
Mm-hmm. And
That's
they're not
insane.
they're. I mean, I've got another computer running right now, and it has since Friday when they started this thing. That is literally just skipping to active streamers
Wow.
to try to get a key. One day, maybe.
Right. Just keeping the hype up. I mean, the marketing is getting crazy for how they're hyping this stuff up, trying to get people to get it. Not spending money on advertising, only spending money on streamers. It's building a weird industry, isn't it?
It may have been out of necessity. Releasing a game right now is really challenging. Doom and Animal Crossing were kind of the first big games this year that were able to kind of stay ahead of the coronavirus. We're able to release on somewhat normal medians, physical and digital. Final Fantasy VII was a mess. You could play this game last week all the way through. Some people don't get their physical copies shipped for another month, just depending on where you are in the world right now. And they shipped a lot of copies like a month early, and some people got their games well before the release date of April 10th. Just because of everything going on right now, it was impossible for them to try to time a single day national or global release for a game. And maybe
That's
that's
true.
why they're driving people to streamers is, we all got to sit home some way. So they're making 500,000 people sit in front of their computers as long as they can. So
Wow.
maybe there's a good positive spin you can put on this. But that'll take, I think, we'll kind of wrap up here and let's jump to Josh. Give me your favorite video game and why
All time.
all time.
Favorite video game all time would be Diablo 2. The reason why I say Diablo 2 is one, I just really like the dark themes. I think it was also a great RPG at the time. I think it was ahead of its time, and I feel like it was a great product. The multiplayer was
Golden Age
amazing.
of Blizzard, right?
Yeah, Golden Age of Blizzard. But then beyond that, what I really liked about Diablo 2, and this is similar to World of Warcraft as well, is just like the in-game economy where you could, technically be wealthy as a gamer depending on the different items and stuff that you had. It was so addicting. Love Diablo 2.
Casey, favorite video game and why?
Oof, that's a tough one. It's a tough one. A couple caveats, like, I mean, multiplayer, single player, but one I always can come back to, I feel like, is like Skyrim. You know, um, if people aren't playing online right now, I got some time to kill. There's something about that world where you can always come back and find something. Um, I've countless hours. I mean, I don't even think I've still completed all the quests in that game, and I don't know. It's a toss up between that and Legend of Zelda, because no matter how many times I beat it, I'm still finding ways to get through it quicker, or um, just that world is so inviting and fun. But either of those, I've played a lot of single player games, and um, I would say, yeah. I mean,
Skyrim is a classic. I mean, that game I think speaks volumes to tons of people out there have had experiences with Skyrim. It was on every. I mean, you can play Skyrim on a smart fridge now. It's on everything. They've literally ported it to every device available.
This is true. Yeah, I mean, I think I own 4 copies. PS3, PS4, PC, Switch. And between, I mean, like I said, there's just so much to do, but yeah, it's never ending. Especially with the mods. Any game like that you can keep playing, keep having different experiences and find stuff. Just
Yeah. I'm gonna go as you guys were talking. I'm trying to think. I had the favorite game picked. I'm gonna shit. I'm gonna pivot here and
what's your
say
favorite game of the last couple years? What's your most recent favorite game? We'll narrow it down a little
recent
for you.
favorite.
Because we all know that like anybody that's a gamer that has listened and knows the classics. Some things are just
The
timeless.
recent favorite probably had to been the most recent. The Breath of the Wild, the Zelda, was a that and God of War were just beautiful video games, amazing to play. But I would have to say the all-time favorite would be EverQuest.
Okay, yeah.
Old school MMO, predates WoW, came along right after the Second Life, released right around the same time. Very open, very brutal MMO, and it was one of the first out there that playing back on a computer with a dial-up modem and being able to connect in, and then all of a sudden I'm with thousands of real players and being able to talk. And like what Josh was saying with Diablo 2, the economy, the in-game economy that develops around these games, and the currencies that are used, it's addicting. There's a reason why that game had a nickname of Evercrack. It was the ways that these companies are getting away from, that they're not coming back to, that the ways they used to hook you, addicting gameplay or addicting gameplay mechanics, are now being kind of full circle, being used for microtransactions, when as before they were just used to get your money to buy the game.
Right. Less innovation in gameplay to more pay to win type tactics.
So we're going to end this segment. I hope you guys enjoyed talking about video games, or listening to us talk about video games, and kind of where we think this industry is headed with microtransactions. We're going to take a short break and be right back, and with a check-in with the Conspiracy Corner with Josh.
Let's go. All right, guys, time to pull out the tinfoil hats again. Last week, we talked about what could have potentially started COVID-19 and that whole wacky 5G conspiracy. This week, I plan on talking about what's going on now that COVID-19 is here. Well, it's been here. And basically what you have to understand is, and this does tie into a little bit about what we discussed last week, is that there's a proxy war going on between the big pharmaceutical companies, not only in this country, but globally, and our current administration. And when I say big pharmaceutical companies, which people often refer to as big pharma, it's more than just the pharmaceutical companies that comprise that industry.
Bigger than Pfizer.
Well, you have all these different foundations, right? And honestly, all a foundation is a way for these very wealthy individuals to throw their money into to really evade taxes. So you have Bill Gates Foundation, you have the Clinton Foundation. You see Mark Zuckerberg has started his own foundation, he dumped a bunch of money into it, and they're all claiming that this money is going towards research, and specifically right now the hot topic is researching a vaccine that can cure COVID-19. But what's occurring is, and I think just to circle back, what's important to kind of take a look at is when this coronavirus outbreak occurred, the media was, in my opinion, blowing it out of proportion. Not to say that It hasn't obviously killed people and doesn't impact. I don't want to water down the severity of it, but at the end of the day, it's a virus, and coronavirus. The flu itself, influenza, is actually a form of the coronavirus. So,
Right, coronavirus
that's why
isn't
they're
anything
similar.
new.
Right, exactly. It's been around for a while. So, the original projections was, at least here in the United States, we're going to have somewhere around 2 million people that die. And then those numbers have kind of changed. And then it went down to somewhere around like 600,000. And now they think it's going to end up somewhere around 100,000. But, and this is just, I think even people that don't buy into conspiracy theories would agree with me that sometimes bad news is the best news, at least for these big news networks. If you watch CNN, MSNBC, Fox, it doesn't matter if it's weather. Hey, there's going to be a hurricane. It's going to be a Category 5. You guys need to run out, buy a bunch of supplies.
Bad news get views.
Exactly. Bad news gets views. So you have to use the same logic, or if you think about it that way, it makes sense as to why this whole COVID-19 thing blew up. I mean, on one hand, it is just the intelligent thing to do to prepare for the worst. But on the other hand, they're hammering this into you so that you expect the worst and that you think that it's probably worse than it is. And the reason why they do that is it's just for money. If you just follow the money, it makes sense. The news networks are making big money on this. And then beyond that, they want the people to be dependent on them for a solution. And the solution that they're working on right now is a vaccination, right? So we've had Bill Gates talk about it. Some of these other big pharmaceutical companies right now are just spending all of this money on researching a vaccine. With that being said, Trump's taken some heat. Not to get too political about this, but our president, Trump, has taken some heat because he kind of went public and he talked about how there may be a cure already out there, right? Which was the whole hydrochloroquine. And the reason why that was brought up is actually twofold. The first is because in some of the other countries, such as like South Korea and France, the doctors there were already prescribing that medication and it was yielding pretty positive results. The second reason...
Sorry.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Casey?
The hydrochloroquine, that's the malaria drug, right? It's
correct.
It's been out for a long time and was FDA approved for malaria, but they haven't approved it for COVID-19 as far as I understand, right?
Of course. Yes. It's been around, I think, since the late 50s or early 60s. Don't quote me on that. You have to Google it, but right around that period of time.
Okay.
But as I was mentioning, so there have been doctors, not to say that they've gone rogue, but if you're a doctor in New York City and you have 500 patients show up and they're all dying of coronavirus, at some point you're going to begin, I don't want to use the term experimenting, but you're going to begin relying on some practices that may have worked in other areas around the world, or that just based on your studies.
They have a duty to their
work.
patient, and they have a duty to their profession, and it's a battle. What do they do? Do they try to save the patient, or do they uphold their teaching and medical practice and says you can't use this drug, it's not tested?
Well, do no harm, but there's also going to be some Dr. Houses out there trying something, for these people.
Yeah.
Right?
You're right. And I watched an interview with a doctor in New York City where he explained why he decided to use that drug, hydrochloroquine, and then he used it in conjunction with the Z-Pak, which is erythromycin or something like that. I don't even know how to pronounce it. And zinc, which is a basic zinc supplement. Not to get into too much of too specific about how it works, because again, I'm not a doctor. You can definitely.
The Z-Pak is what they use to combat
the way it works is
common cold or flu, right?
So correct, yeah. Z-Pak is often used. It's an antibiotic, and it's often used to cure a common cold or a flu. But basically, what the hydrochloroquine does is it It allows your cells to open up and accept more zinc. So apparently, when you take certain supplements like zinc, vitamin A, vitamin C, you really only absorb a very small percentage of that. So the hydrochloroquine, and again, I'm not a doctor, but just trying to give a really basic outline of how it works, is it basically prevents, it throws a monkey wrench into the system. It prevents the virus from replicating. It can't replicate because the cells open up, your cells can bring in more zinc and basically battle the virus. Now, the reason why I'm getting into all of this is because there's a clear conflict right now between what Big Pharma wants to do as far as providing a solution for the COVID-19 versus what some medical experts and even the president of our country think could potentially be a cure. And one of the big reasons why is because this anti-malaria drug, hydrochloroquine, has been out since the 50s or 60s. It's not very profitable. In fact, it's a super cheap drug.
There's no
And
monies in cures. There's money in treatment.
That is also true. And there's no and this may not be true right now, because now that people are kind of waking up and they understand that this could be a potential treatment, I think there is a demand for this drug. But at the time it was readily available, it's something that's being used all around the world as well. So it's not something that the pharmaceutical companies have to research or as you mentioned, they're just not going to make money off of it. I think the doctor that I saw the interview on, which, by the way, if you guys are interested, his name's Dr. Shiva. You can look him up. He's got a PhD in biology from MIT, and he actually has multiple PhDs, one in biology and one in engineering. But anyway, I digress. To get back to my point, there's just no money to make off of it. So that's, if you're a conspiracy theorist, such as myself, you can begin to kind of draw the connections here that we have a problem that we're relying on the government to solve, and a potential solution might not be very profitable. And this is a time right now with our economy in the gutter, not just our economy, but the European economy as well. And again, I kind of mentioned that this was a global effort. They are basically chomping at the bit to profit off of us, because we are dependent on them to solve this crisis where everyone's dying from this COVID-19. So, based on all that information, I'll turn to you first, Michael. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think this is as tinfoily as last week. I think you are honestly right in line with what is happening right now. This isn't a conspiracy. This is exactly what um, is going on behind closed doors of the big companies. What's their incentive to find a cure or to solve this? There isn't, financially at least. Uh, yes, the company that does come out with this is going to have a lot of notoriety, but like I said, if it's an existing drug, like you were talking about, the way that these pharmaceutical companies make money is by coming out with a new drug. They can patent it, and no other company can make that drug for X amount of time. Then the generic gets released. You hear about that all the time. Viagra just recently um, was able to have the generics made for that medication. Pfizer is no longer the only one able to produce it, so now that medicine is wildly cheaper, and that drives the cost down. So I think you're right. They're going to look for a magic cure-all or a magic drug that is a treatment that they can patent, that they can make money off of, versus there's a guy who wants to be released from jail right now, that's putting a plea together. He is the one who just got arrested for like fraud or insider trading or something, but he was a head pharmaceutical guy, and he's saying that we need to be looking at the past. We need to be running synthesis on old drugs to find its effectiveness, because this isn't new. The coronavirus isn't a new virus. It's been around It's a type of virus that we can actively combat.
Right. The coronavirus is just a newer strain of this. Now, like you said, like with antibiotics and antivirals, the amount of times that those have to be redesigned and changed per year is way more than you would really think. Like the same penicillin that you get when you were sick is nothing like the original penicillin that came out. It's all been modified and changed. Um, Going back into the past to find something that used to work, stopped working, and might work again because of all the mutations that happen. It's very possible. But like you were saying with the media panicking all this up, a little more, than they probably need to be. But I mean, like you said, you don't want to downplay. Like it is deadly. It can kill people, but we still haven't even hit flu levels of deaths or infections. The flu kills a lot more people than the corona has. It's just that we don't
Well,
know
to
the
not downplay
extent.
the severity of corona, we are right now. Corona is a SARS type virus. It is. We have more deaths right now with the coronavirus than we have with SARS and MERS over the last 17 years.
Mhm.
True. Now, along with that panic, or well, not even the panic, but the awareness that the media is providing out there, if a cure or a vaccine to prevent it or something like that turns out to be something that we already have and can make for very cheap, it would almost be like kind of like a big bust for a lot of these people. The foundations, like it's like they're putting all this money into the foundations, and the media's hyping it up, and then all of a sudden, oh, we can just fix this with something easy. It's almost like if that were to happen, just put my
Yeah.
tinfoil back hat on.
Go get this drug.
Um,
All CVS's and Walgreens and insert drug store name here already carry it and have great supply. Go get it.
right now, let's hear the first person, doctor, whoever, to come out with that information suddenly suicides themselves. To keep that under wraps. If it is that easy,
Josh would be the one to find it and let all of us know.
I hope
Well, no,
so. I hope
that's
so.
that's the second part of the conspiracy is, because you had the Chinese whistleblower who did end up kind of mysteriously dying from COVID. And, not to get super off topic, but people think that the reason that was the case was because he knew that, China already had a way to kind of control and contain this. So that's a whole nother separate conspiracy that I'm not going to get too involved in. But just to back up your point, Casey, one could argue that that's already happened. Because if you look statistically, and again, it's very difficult to interpret because we can't trust the validity of the data that we're receiving from China, but the data that we're receiving from China makes it seem that they have it under control. Their economy is doing well right now. Apparently, there's whole major cities where
They're
everyone's
releasing
working
the
again.
restrictions.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
there's also been a lot of fires in China recently. you know, fire kills all and controls viruses very well. So, but you know, still got my tinfoil hat on over here. You can't trust much of the information coming out of there. It's one of those things. The amount of time they kept it under wraps from the get go. It's hard to say. Like there very well could be some sort of method that they had that just if it got out, no one would make money, like you said.
Yeah, and then that's where outside of this podcast, if you want to go online and do some research, but there's tons of theories as to why they're waiting to find a vaccine, and what vaccinating people could potentially lead to. And I don't mean, I'm not talking about the vaccines cause autism thing. I know that's like a huge conspiracy, but just what vaccinations, or put it, would be if we vaccinated an entire population, what the potential impact of that could be. One, obviously, would be a huge financial gain for the pharmaceutical company providing that vaccine. But then beyond that, it's just another way for the government to have just a little bit more control in our life, because now we're all dependent on that vaccination. They can put laws in place that say we can't do this or can't do that because we haven't been vaccinated. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe that's what the outcome of this would be. So
I challenge
um,
everybody, Casey, Josh, and our listeners to go watch I Am Legend. Not the whole movie. Watch the first 10 minutes.
Right. No.
You can find it on YouTube. The intro to that movie, the setup of there being an interview with a head of a big pharma company saying, "Yes, we've found this cure of cancer. We derived it from the measles vaccine, and yes, we've done it." And they mass distribute it, and guess what? A untested, something that could very much happen with today's circumstances. A what am I going to call this? A single medication breaks through the wall or shines, it has the god light shine down on it. If this is our savior, we mass distribute it without testing it or the proper trials, and we end up with, the movie takes it into a much much more dramatic fashion of zombies and an epidemic outbreak, that because this medication was untested, all this bad stuff happens. But what if a year from now we all get cancer because we all rushed and took this vaccine to cure coronavirus, and now a third or two-thirds of the population is wiped out within 5 years? That kind
Sure.
of scenario is what scares me.
yeah,
Also, the like you said, like what if there's not only are they maybe they have a cure, but because they don't have a test for who's taken the vaccine yet, it's not released. Like I said, with the states and cities cracking down on quarantine and like, hey, you're out and about, like let's put roadblocks up and we're going to scan you if you haven't had the vaccine. You know, go over here and we're putting you in this spot.
Yeah.
If they were able to, it's letting more. I mean, like you said, not to get more political, but it's letting more government of control into our lives.
Mhm.
The media's behind helping out. Um, it's. I mean, that frightens me a little bit more than worrying about touching something at Target. Um, I mean, obviously, if people coughing, stay away. Just like anything else, nobody wants to get sick, but yeah, it just brings up questions. Like, is there a cure? Is there a test for the cure? Is there?
Well, what you just mentioned ties into my really final point here, is that the the
Shut up, Terry.
deception that is taking place right now is that, hey, we need to continue to abide by these social distancing laws and rules, and eventually we'll all sit around, we'll wait until they come out with a vaccine or some sort of cure for this, when really your best defense is just your best defense for the flu or any of these other common viral sicknesses that you could get, which is eating healthy, exercising regularly,
Washing your
making sure
hands.
you have a strong immune system. And the media is not giving that information out at all. And if you see a lot of the people that are dying from this virus, they're either very old or they're people that have damaged immune systems. They have damaged immune systems either because they have of some genetic predisposition, which in that scenario, that's very unfortunate. That sucks. Or because of their lifestyle and the choices they made. They were heavy smokers, they were obese, heart disease, whatever it may be. So if anyone's listening to this, the thing that you should do right now, that's probably even more important than social distancing, is just make sure you're healthy, because even if you contract this virus, you'll more than likely be good to go as long as your immune system isn't compromised.
So while we're all staying home, forced to stay home, develop some healthy habits. Now's the time to do it. We all got time now. There's no excuses why we can't
Yeah.
all learn healthy habits and play video games.
Hey, you got to keep your
Do it on a
dexterity
treadmill.
up. Do
Walk
it on a
around.
treadmill. Yeah.
Play it standing. Stay home. And I think what we all need to take away from Josh's conspiracy corner is Big Pharma is not going to save us until they can figure out how to monetize their treatment plan. Very
Correct.
much like video game developers monetize their games to make money off us. How's that for a segue?
There you go, man. I like it.
Tie it all together.
I do want to thank everyone this week. We are going to wrap up this episode to try to keep everything around an hour long once it's all said and done and edited. And if you can hear anything in the background, my little kid needs some attention and is ready to play. Let's get a definitive answer on microtransactions in gaming. I think we can all agree that we know they're here to stay, but are we for them or against them?
I feel like we're not going to get rid of them. I'm going to say I'm okay with microtransactions if you want to have a better skin, but don't make me pay to have more quality gameplay. and don't make me pay to be able to raise my skill ceiling. If
So
if
you're
I'm good at the
with
game,
cosmetics.
I'm good with cosmetics. As long as the gameplay's solid and I can access it, and victory or being competitive is based on my skill, then I'm okay with just the cosmetics. But
Josh, if you can hear us now, again, we're recording this remotely, so there are some technical difficulties here we're working through. Definitive answer on microtransactions in gaming.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The audio cut out for me for a second there. Microtransactions I'm against. I'm okay with the cosmetic stuff. It is what it is. If you want to pay to look good, you know what I mean? I can't hate on that. It's a shame to me because I think you can look good without creating some sort of mechanic that requires you to pay. So I'm 90% against microtransactions, loot boxes, battle passes, but if that's the way we're going, just keep it cosmetic.
And I'm going to go ahead and, like I did in the first episode, and take the loss. I'm going to take the big L here and call myself the biggest gamer and loser, just based on today's topic of microtransactions and who possibly might have spent the most. You've got two people very much against, for the most part, are okay with them being there, but are personally not going to use them. And me, who is all for them if I can look cooler or skip some gameplay and still get to kind of get the full experience of a game. And go back and listen to our first episode, and you'll hear me talk about my experience with Overwatch and how much I've dumped in that game.
Loser.
Thank you everyone again for joining us for episode 2 of Generation Web. Please check us out. We've got a YouTube channel at GenWebPod on Twitter, anchor.fm/Generation Web. And again, shout out to our sponsor, Anchor. You can download their app or go to anchor.fm to get started creating your own podcast. It's how we actually produce this podcast, and it is amazing. Being able to single deploy and publish our podcasts. We're now on everyone out there. We're on iTunes, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on Shoutbox, we're on Castbox, we're on Radio Republic, all the places you can get your podcasts. You can find us, and that's all made possible by Anchor. Thank you guys very much. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye-bye.